BYU and Colorado are at home next weekend. Arizona State and Iowa State are playing for a Big 12 championship. This, I don't even know, is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Chaos. Once again, chaos. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. And when I say chaos, I mean actually kind of not that much chaos. I told you. They told you. 4 teams go 7-2 that Arizona State and Iowa State would meet in the Big 12 championship. And that's the case right now. We'll start there. We'll also talk BYU, Colorado. Your destiny was in hand, and you gave it up. You had the opportunity to win a Big 12 title, go to the college football playoff, and you said, you know what? Nah, not this year. And then at the end of the show, UCF, Gus Malzahn, no more. He is gone to Florida State. Who is next for the Knights? We'll talk about it. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Off the riff, let's go through every game on our last full slate of Big 12 football in 2024. Starting with, what? Iowa State, Kansas State, to Colorado on Friday, playing Oklahoma State, to Arizona State blasting Arizona, and then BYU in Houston, which for a bit there was kind of confusing. These were all consequential games for everybody else. And the biggest takeaway was this for me. Arizona State, Iowa State are in the Big 12 championship. I was on hand for the Iowa State-Kansas State game. Might I say, Jack Trice Stadium, one of the best in the entire Big 12. The way they treat media, the way they treat fans, the way that fans treat players, the most respectful field rush I've maybe ever seen in my life. Spectacular. Then you look at Arizona State. No matter how you feel about Kenny Dillingham, no matter how you think, like BYU fans really hate that guy and I'll give it to you. The outburst, wife is right there, ESPN reporter, it's kind of like he's over the ref's shoulder watching the replay. Bad optic. Throw that out. He is the Big 12 Coach of the Year. He is possibly the National Coach of the Year. 10-2 Big 12 championship game. Like, I watched Colorado win on Friday. I watched BYU beat Houston, not in dominating fashion, but in dominating enough. I watched Baylor and Kansas, Texas Tech roll through West Virginia, TCU struggle with Cincinnati. But the biggest takeaway is that Arizona State, not only did they take care of business, they blew out Arizona. A game that I said would be close. Oh, rivalry, good quarterback, good receiver. Arizona State grades badly in X category. Didn't matter. Iowa State. Rivalry, revenge game. Feel like Kansas State after last year, because of this year's weather, just wants to get back at you. And I was wrong on so many fronts by not trusting the cream of the crop in the Big 12 right now. And when I say that's I should give myself some grace. Last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, you told me this league is chaos. It's anarchy. It's parody. We shouldn't trust BYU or Kansas State or Iowa State or Colorado or anybody. And in this week, I finally was like, you know what? I'll subscribe to it. Total chaos. My picks throughout the week matched chaos. And for the first time in a long time in the Big 12, things made sense. Iowa State beating Kansas State. That's a favorite winning. BYU beating Houston. That's a favorite winning. Baylor over Kansas. By the time this closed on FanDuel, Baylor was a 1.5 point favorite. That's a favorite winning. Texas Tech, West Virginia. Tech was favored by 3. That is a favorite at 52-15 winning. TCU, Cincinnati, TCU -3. That is a favorite winning. Arizona State, Colorado. The only upset in the Big 12 this week was Utah. So to say chaos marks this league, chaos never ending, I finally thought this weekend would showcase that. And BYU being the Big 12 title, Colorado in a Big 12 title. But no, finally, what I've asked for, what I've wanted, what the Big 12 has needed is for the contenders to step up and win. I sat pretty close for most of the game, a good portion, first quarter especially, around Brett Yormark. That's a guy who is a very active watcher of the Big 12 conference in football, and a guy who understands the repercussions of every matchup in the Big 12 title. And if you're him, can I be honest? I'll get into this more. He wanted, from an exposure standpoint, BYU, Colorado. A businessman wants his investment to be at the tip-top, most popular, most polarizing, most talk of the town that it can be. And Brett Yormark didn't get that. Instead, here's what he got. Here's what I got. The 2 best teams in the Big 12 right now. Iowa State, who slipped up, but turned it around. Arizona State, who slipped up against Cincinnati, but turned it around. And they're playing the hottest football, arguably, in the entire Big 12. And that is how we got here. That is how we had a weekend of no chaos, but a weekend instead of teams that say, fine, I will step up. And you know what that makes me confident in? It makes me confident in the Big 12 competing in the college football playoff. When Iowa State says, I'm playing my best football. Arizona State says, I'm playing my best football. Those are teams that can win in the postseason. Big 12, we need that. We need exactly that. And I am now confident in those 2 schools that whoever wins the Big 12 title, they'll do it. Coming up, Colorado and BYU. What is wrong with you? This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is where I go. I said, FanDuel, I don't know. I think Colorado will beat Oklahoma State by a lot of points. FanDuel says, what about 16.5? I said, FanDuel, I've gone back and forth, but fine. 16.5, I'll do it. FanDuel.com/locked on, your place to go. Because there, you can bet on Colorado minus 16.5 against Oklahoma State, and they will cover. Well, they did, for me at least. NFL action, college football action, America's #1 sportsbook. It's FanDuel. Bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. NFL, college, live bets, latest stats, live play-by-play, all in one place. FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That easy. Visit FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more. FanDuel. It's official, unofficial sportsbook partner of the NFL. Visit FanDuel and do it today. Yeah. BYU and Colorado. Those 2 schools, I think above all else, deserve a very stern how. Why? When I believed that at their peak, BYU and Colorado were the best two teams in the Big 12. What I guess I didn't take into account was the collapse that each team could give. For Colorado, you got trounced by Kansas. For BYU, you lost to Kansas and lost to Arizona State in consecutive weeks. You played. So let's dial back. You played your Big 12 championship against Arizona State a week ago. You played a Kansas team you lost to, and we gave you a mulligan. We said, yeah, okay. Colorado lost it to, they almost lost to Baylor. They didn't. Colorado lost to Kansas State. Kansas State's good. We'll give them a mulligan. Later in the year, Colorado can still keep winning their way to a Big 12 title, finish 8-1 in conference play. BYU can finish 8-1 in conference play and win their way to a Big 12 title. Both those schools lost to a very good Kansas team. But that mulligan goes away. That mulligan isn't there when you lose, in the case of BYU, to Arizona State. When you lose, in the case of Colorado, like you lost to Kansas State, now you lose to Kansas? What that Colorado-Kansas game was the Big 12 championship for Deion Sanders, for Travis Hunter, for Shedeur Sanders, for Shiloh. That's what it was, a play-in to the conference title. For BYU, your play-in to the conference title, control your own destiny, is go on the road and beat Arizona State. If you want to say, as a BYU fan, that BYU would be the best representation of the Big 12 in the not just Big 12 championship, but college football playoff, the first thing you have to point to is conference record. First thing you point to is say, hey, we dominated the Big 12. We not even dominated. We won the Big 12. We did our job in the Big 12. And now we have an opportunity to represent that conference on the biggest stage. But you don't. And the reason why is your play-in game. We gave you. You lost to Kansas. We will give you a second chance. You go 8-1, we'll put you in the Big 12 title. Kansas was a fluky game. The muffed punt thing. Would it happen 2 weeks in a row? Opportunity there. Opportunity squandered. And that is how we got here. To Arizona State and Iowa State. Colorado, same thing. Arizona State, very good. Iowa State, very good. I won't take away from those two programs. For Colorado, your loss to Kansas State, mulligan. It didn't matter. In the end, had you won out, you're in the Big 12 title, playing for a college football playoff. Same for BYU. I just don't. These two plummets from grace don't make a ton of sense to me. And I get it. Chaos, the Big 12. Oh, yeah, new team every week. Colorado was supposed to be bad. BYU was supposed to be bad. But what we did, which was very appropriate, you did it, I did it, everybody did it, was reset expectations. From now on, Colorado is a Big 12 title contender. They should win the Big 12. They have two guys who are in New York competing for a Heisman. For BYU, you are a Big 12 title contender. You have a balanced offense, a balanced defense, and ability to win big games. You throttled Kansas State. We now believe that BYU can represent this conference as the apex team in the college football playoff. That was the rhetoric for both squads. And again, I can't say it enough. It's so stunning to me. We gave you grace. We gave you one loss. You lose that game, fine. Come back, prove who you are. Colorado couldn't. BYU couldn't. They lost. Both of those teams lost. Hey, I get it. You fell. One mistake. Georgia's fallen, Alabama's fallen, a lot of these SEC, ACC, like, all right, Big Ten, top ranked teams. Ohio State lost to Michigan. They get a mulligan because they approved their acumen. In the Big 12, we're not granted the same leash, right, as the SEC and the Big Ten. Therefore, we'll give you the leash of one loss. But when you bring the second into play, we look around and go, huh. Nationally, especially, is that team going to be okay? And the answer, by and large, from the College Football Playoff Committee has been no, they won't be okay. And they'll leave you out. And for somebody who was wholly prepared, not, 3 weeks ago, for BYU and Colorado in the Big 12 championship, it is disappointing from the standpoint of someone who is so prepared, disappointing that those two teams underperformed when the moment was the biggest, when your opportunity was there, when you knew these are the biggest games that we circle, from Kansas to Arizona State. These are the ones we have to land the plane. Season goes completely south because you couldn't do it. And I don't want Iowa State or Arizona State to take this as I'm frustrated that these two teams didn't make the title. Brett Yormark is guaranteed. He makes more money. The Big 12 makes more money if Colorado and BYU play in the Big 12 title. Guaranteed. So why wouldn't he, as a businessman, want that? Did he get the best two teams in this conference in the title game? Arizona State? Iowa State? Yes, he did. Those are the best two teams in the Big 12 right now. Those are the best two teams to put the Big 12 in a spot to win a college football playoff game right now. Are they the best for exposure? Maybe not. I don't care. I don't. Because the best two teams currently on December 1st will play for the Big 12 title on Saturday. BYU and Colorado, if you wanted to be the best two teams, if you wanted to be the best two teams in this conference, you had every opportunity to do so. And you said no. You squandered it. You left it behind. And for that, the Big 12 moves forward with two teams that took their most key games late more seriously. I get it. I do. Arizona State lost to Texas Tech. Arizona State lost to Cincinnati. But right now, they're playing better football than BYU. Better football than Colorado. And that's why they are where they are. And I can't blame them. I can't blame the Big 12. I can't blame a system. Kansas State didn't lose this for BYU. BYU lost it for BYU. Kansas State, Houston, they didn't lose this. They didn't lose it for Colorado. Colorado lost it for Colorado. Coming up, Gus Malzahn. Gone, I guess. This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time, oh, buddy. Concerts, comedy, theater, Game Time. These tickets. I was like, hey, I just really, really want Iowa State, Kansas State. I want to go. Game Time, make it cheap. Game Time says, hey, we'll give you $20 off your first purchase and tickets to this game are like $33. So it's over 50% off if you use Game Time. Curated deals, super deals, seat view before you buy, lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection. Game Time's the place to go. Yeah. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. That's right. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. If you download Game Time, this is real. $20 off. And so $33. That's $13. That's right. Saved an arm and a leg on Iowa State and Kansas State football tickets with Game Time. You can do the exact same. Visit Game Time, download the app, do it today. Gus Malzahn is gone. He will part ways with UCF, leave the Knights after 4 seasons in Orlando, and become the offensive coordinator at Florida State, ESPN reports. And if you look across the Big 12 with our Big 12 title odds, Arizona State. So at the time of recording, and to peel the curtain back just a bit, in my wonky hotel room, I am showering, putting on my Big 12 hoodie to get, and if you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job, putting on my hoodie to get ready to go to Iowa State and Kansas State, Farmageddon, on site with Locked On Big 12 this evening, when I get the push notification from ESPN that Gus Malzahn is gone, no longer at UCF, will become the OC for Mike Norvell at FSU. And I see the score of Arizona State and Arizona with Cam Scatterboot and company blowing out the Wildcats. Now, first and foremost, foot and mouth, should have called that. Arizona State, a much better football team. Let's talk scenarios here in a second. First, the bigger news, the news that will follow UCF for the next month as they search for a new head coach. Gus Malzahn's done. 9-4 his first season in the American Athletic Conference, 9-5 after that, and then last season 6-7 in the Big 12, takes his team to a bowl game, loses in the Gasparilla, then 4-8 regression this year. He sells out for KJ Jefferson, the Arkansas kid, and it doesn't work. I had sources a month ago who were calling saying, man, everybody at UCF just wants Gus to save a little face. He could come back next season. There's no intent to actually fire him or move on in that capacity. Things are rocky right now, and he's doing everything he can in the public sphere to try to win back donors, to try to bring himself back into the graces of the UCF fan base. And instead of doing that, he's walking. He is taking the backseat, becoming an offensive coordinator in a job that is this isn't a career saver. This is an attempt to save someone else's. Mike Norvell, the only reason he's coming back to Florida State after going 2-10 this season is because of the promise of new assistant coaches. Gus Malzahn was one of the most innovative offensive minds in college football a decade ago. We were all saying that 2011 Auburn year, that wow, between Cam Newton and Gus Malzahn, those two guys put their brains together, and this is the most deadly offense college football has ever seen. He goes to Arkansas State, has immediate success in the Sun Belt, and then at Auburn goes to the BCS National Championship game in year number 1. Where was that Gus Malzahn in Orlando? Why could a guy like Frost or a Heupel win at such a high level at UCF, and then a Gus walks in who also won in the SEC, who also had success at other major schools, walk in and not? How do you not bring in bigger and better recruits with the base of the Big 12? We're seeing a BYU do that right now. They are getting better recruits because they're in the Big 12. How did Gus Malzahn, who, and I'm an Arkansas native, we revere that guy. I mean, you look back to when he was a high school football coach and say, yeah, that was a dude. Everybody was scared of his Shiloh Christian high school teams. Offensive guru. He had the VHS tapes that everybody wanted to buy. I don't get, it was almost as if he leaves an Auburn, leaves an SEC school, and UCF was never a serious stop for him. From waving off his backup quarterback on the sideline to not having any answers to the Baylor game last year where you're dominating in the fourth quarter and you have a complete collapse. His last 2 years, his first 2 in the Big 12, have been completely erratic. And if I'm a UCF fan, you wanted the legendary coach to work out. You wanted the Herm Edwards type. Oh, we hired a guy who's got a track record, who's coached at a big level, who's been to a national championship game as a head coach. You want that guy to work out, and you're a little stunned when it doesn't. But honestly, you're probably better off for it. Now where you go is someone who has coached in Florida, someone who has Florida ties. Now what you do if you are UCF is go get the guy who knows one of the top states in the entire country when it comes to high school recruits. That's the state of Florida. The hire that should be made by UCF must be a coach that understands not necessarily even the UCF culture, but understands that state and what can be done. If Iowa State or Kansas State takes a ton of in-state kids, only in-state kids, or Oklahoma State takes only in-state kids, they cannot compete. Heck, if Texas Tech only takes West Texas kids, they can't compete. If UCF takes solely Florida products, you could win a Big 12 championship and compete in the college football playoff. That is the mentality the next head coach of UCF needs to have. And I do not think that parting ways with Gus Malzahn, though it sounds like Gus is the one who's leaving, is something that's going to be bad for UCF. I think if you're a UCF fan, given what he did at 28 and 24, 16 and 18 in conference play, that was like he was 16 and 18 in conference play as the head coach of the Knights. And listen to this: 5-3, then 6-2 his first 2 seasons in the AAC. So he had patted himself with an 11-5 conference record, and then past that in the Big 12, he was 5-13. Couldn't win. BYU's proving that teams can adjust and do so. Cincinnati didn't have a god-awful year. UCF was arguably non-competitive in most of its Big 12 games. And now the head coach that did that is gone. I don't think it's a bad thing for the Knights. I don't think you're in a bad spot if you're the Knights. This is just a sporadic, instant reaction, but the next guy, he'll be able to put you in business.